Sailor Moon R the movie. Never in my life did I think I'd get the opportunity to watch this in a theater. Literally, the first thing that my friends and I said when this movie started and we saw the Viz logo was, well, that's weird to see in a theater. But when they announced that this movie was coming to theaters, my hype thrusters were set into maximum overdrive. This dang survey. I was always pretty shy about the fact that I liked Sailor Moon, but I got so excited by the simple thought of this movie coming to a theater near me that I emailed this to nearly everyone I knew. Although almost immediately afterwards I realized that it may have been a horrible mistake. It ended up working and we got plenty of showtimes in my area. God, I remember this list. I checked this way more often than I would like to admit. At first it was just a weekly thing to check and see if my city was on the list, but slowly as January 19th approached and my anxiety grew, it eventually became part of my daily routine. Brush teeth, get in bed, check the theater list, and pray to God that where I live was on it. About 2 weeks before the date, I was just about to lose hope when suddenly I checked one fateful Sunday, and oh my God, there it was! My hype absolutely exploded for the first time since the wait for Smash 4. I invited my friends, sped over to our local theater, and it was such a grand time. Okay, I guess I should talk about the actual movie itself instead of just the event. But don't worry, I'm going back to that later. I cannot wait to talk about that. This is the first of 3 movies created for the original Sailor Moon series. The movie was originally released on December 5th, 1993, and then it was dubbed and released in the West on February 8th in the year 2000. As shown by the various plot elements in here, such as Usagi and Mamoru being together, we can tell that this movie takes place sometime in between episode 77 and episode 81. I guess the Black Moon just decided to take a day off. Although, funny enough, episode 77 wasn't released until December 11th, 6 days after this movie's release, so through this movie they kind of quote-unquote spoiled the fact that Mamoru and Usagi would mend their relationship. Now, some of the first footage I saw from Sailor Moon actually came from this movie, so I was pretty excited when I reached this point in the series and found out that this is where it came from. So let's not waste any more time and get right into the first of the Sailor Moon movies, Sailor Moon R, the movie. Not a very creative title, guys. Or at least the dub gave it the title Promise of the Rose. But I digress, on with the review. Well, first off, the movie starts with a little 15-minute short called Make Up Sailor Guardian. It takes place in a cafe with Chibiusa and Usagi talking about who the best Sailor Senshi is and recapping the important elements of the series. It's pretty cute and entertaining, and it helped my friends who know nothing about Sailor Moon to go into the movie with at least some understanding of the characters and mechanics of the series. Yeah, when I found that this was coming to theaters, I dragged some innocence with me. Being alone in a movie theater is a sad existence. Anyways, on with the actual movie. The movie starts with a flashback to when Mamoru was a child, as he says goodbye to his best friend Fiore. Mamoru gives him a rose as a parting gift, and as he disappears, he promises to one day return with flowers of his own for Mamoru. Cut to present day with a short comedic scene in this botanical garden when suddenly Fiore returns.
Can you feel the love tonight? Get the fuck back!
Mamoru is basically speechless as he had convinced himself that Fiore was just an imaginary friend he made up. Fiore pushes Usagi down for trying to keep Mamoru to herself, and then he just leaves. Well, okay.
That was pointless.
We then switch that night as the girls discuss what happened earlier when Artemis begins examining a suspicious meteor heading towards Earth. He notices a lot of weird things about it, like how it's somewhat hollow and contains plant matter. Everyone else just dismisses it as a normal meteor since its angle shows that it isn't going to collide with Earth, but he remains suspicious. The next day, the girls are walking through town when they notice a large group of people that got their energy stolen from these weird plants. Ami uses her computer to track where the plants are coming from and tracks it to this flower. Immediately afterwards, the flower turns into a monster and begins draining Ami and Rei's energy. Usagi goes to protect Chibiusa while Minako and Mako transform, and oh my god, unique transformation themes! Okay, I know I don't usually talk about soundtracks until later, but oh, these themes are so good. And no longer do we have to deal with the confusion of the background chorus chanting, even though Sailor Moon isn't even the one transforming. I was actually pretty confused when I rewatched the R series because I thought they started using these themes immediately when they received the star power upgrades, but nope, apparently they didn't start using that till here. But seriously, these themes are great. Jupiter and Venus use their attacks to save Rei and Ami and let them transform. Wait, shouldn't Mars' attack be a one-hit kill considering it's a plant monster? After Chibiusa is in a safe place, Usagi transforms into Sailor Moon and joins the others. Together they defeat the enemy and then... Hold on. Ale? What the hell are you doing here? Oh wait, this is actually Fiore? Well, that's lazy character design if I've ever heard of it. He literally looks exactly like Ale with slightly different clothes. Heck, later in the movie he gets the exact same clothes as him. Hold on just a minute. We have an Ale lookalike, plants being the main enemy, aliens having a crush on Mamoru, and all of this under the title of R. Oh my god. This is a direct ripoff of the godforsaken Doomtree arc. Except, you know, this is actually good. I don't know. With how close these two are, there was no way this was unintentional. Maybe they wanted to give the movie at least some sort of connection to the actual series. Or, who knows, maybe they actually were too lazy to come up with a new character design. Fiore proceeds to completely curb stomp the Sailor Senshi until Tuxedo Mask throws his signature rose. I swear these movies always have the best Tuxedo Mask entrances. Fiore gets confused as to why Mamoru would protect the others, but then the flower on his chest begins speaking to him and tells him that they've been tricking Mamoru into believing that they're his friends. Artemis sees this and recognizes the flower as a Cassinian blossom, a flower that takes over and destroys worlds by manipulating a host that finds it. Fiore pushes Tuxedo Mask out the way and tries to kill Sailor Moon to free Mamoru, but he jumps in front of the attack and gets shanked instead. Fiore of course gets upset that he mortally wounded Mamoru and takes him away to, quote-unquote, heal his wounds. But we all know where they're really going. Off to the sex dungeon with Yi. Sailor Moon gets pretty upset about this, but after another headshot from Chibiusa, she gets over it. Also, gee, this doesn't look the least bit similar to the mid-season climax of Season 1, in which Mamoru gets stabbed and kidnapped, and Sailor Moon has a meltdown over not wanting anyone to get hurt to protect her. I mean, it's not like they blatantly reused the scene of Mamoru getting stabbed or anything, no. Mercury discovers that the plant matter inside the meteor heading towards Earth is actually the same as that of the Cassinian blossom. The purpose of the meteor is to spread the flower's seeds all over the Earth so that the flowers will take over and destroy it. The Senshi then combine their powers and use the Cello Teleport to reach the meteor. Wow, and I thought 3D animation looked bad in anime nowadays. Oddly enough, this sort of visual always makes me think of old school Toonami. Anybody else get that sort of vibe? The meteor conveniently opens up for them, and after demolishing one of the flower monsters of Sailor Planet attack, they land. Well, most of them anyways. Mercury checks her computer to see where Fiore went and notices that they are completely surrounded by enemies. Though looking around, there seem to be none around them. Take your votes now as to what's actually happening. Time's up, let's see what the answer is. Congratulations! If you answered B, then you have the pride of having a functioning memory. How convenient that none of the flowers right next to, or better yet, directly under them grow into monsters though. All the ones that do reveal themselves are at a very comfortable distance. Though, to be fair, this scene is pretty dang cool. Yeah, water those flowers! You know, I imagine Mars would be the useful one here instead of Sailor Moon considering they're fighting plants. Just light a bunch of them on fire if your attacks and then let that fire spread to the rest of the flowers and monsters. Boom, entire meteor cleared. The enemies realize that their ambush isn't working, so instead they all do this. How do I even describe this? Mars, quick! Burn him down like you did to that Yoma in the first season! Or just let yourself get buried alive. That works too, I guess. Fiore says that he'll kill the Sailor Senshi unless Sailor Moon drops her weapon and stops trying to attack, and much to his surprise, she actually agrees to his demands. He stops his attack as well out of shock over her being selfless, but the Cassinian Blossom then works its magic. Again. But this time it does have the added effect of making him pink. Fiore grabs Sailor Moon and begins draining her of her energy while talking about how he'll never be alone again and how nobody will ever understand how he feels. This prompts some flashbacks from the other Sailor Senshi who remember how lonely they were before meeting Usagi. By the way, I would just like to mention how Rei's flashback is significantly less bad than the others. Ami's made fun of her being a nerd, people are terrified of Makoto's size, Minako is distant and a loner during her time as Sailor V, and Rei has really useful psychic powers that help people find things. Maybe it's just me, but I don't really see the downside in that. Once she runs out of energy, Fiore gets ready to kill Sailor Moon for about the umpteenth time in the movie, but then gets stopped by Deus Machina number umpteen. You know, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. While all this was going on, Tuxedo Mask escaped the crystal he was in that was healing his wounds and threw a rose just in time to save Sailor Moon. Fiore becomes devastated that Mamoru would attack him and gives up his plan completely. All the flowers disappear and the Cassinian Blossom's plan is done.
Watch out! He's up to something!
But hold on there, we aren't done yet. Fiore still has one last trick up his sleeve. He decides that if he can't have Mamoru, then no one can, and proceeds to change the trajectory of the meteor to head straight towards Earth so that they'll all die together. Usagi somewhat regains consciousness and reveals the silver crystal in order to... Whoa, okay, you might want to watch where you grab her there, Fiore. That's kind of a no-no spot for humans. Okay, it got worse. Usagi transmits a memory into Fiore of how she first met Mamoru. She was at Mamoru's hospital due to her mom having a baby when she noticed him crying in his room about Fiore leaving soon. She then gave him one of the roses that she was holding for her mom, and that ended up being the same rose that he gave to Fiore before leaving. Okay, now this scene has always confused me. In the first season, Usagi acts like it's the first time she's ever even seen Mamoru, but here she somehow clearly remembers this moment and that this was Mamoru. How did you know that this was Mamoru? And when did you come to this realization? Actually... Usagi, you just made up the story to go on Fiore's good side, didn't you? You know, whatever. If it gets him to stop groping you, then I'm fine with it. Oh, thank God. Fiore stops trying to fight after hearing the story and disappears with the Cassinian Blossom being destroyed by the Silver Crystal. Usagi transforms into Princess Serenity and uses the Silver Crystal to the best of her abilities to stop the meteor. Also, for the record, this scene is one of the best and most memorable in the entire Sailor Moon series. Heck, to me it's only second to some of the scenes in Sailor Stars. All the Senshi combine their powers together and they actually somehow succeed in stopping the meteor. How in the hell did they pull that off? Okay, so out of curiosity, I just searched up what it would take to change the trajectory of a meteor in real life, and apparently according to the source, which may or may not be legitimate, the plan in such a situation would be to make a bunch of nuclear explosions nearby and use the force of the explosions to push the meteor in a different direction. That means that just half the Sailor Senshi, not even in their strongest forms mind you, are stronger than nuclear warheads. Jesus Christ! Something I often credit Pretty Cure to is that they actually make their characters seem and feel more powerful when they transform, while in Sailor Moon it just looks like they're wearing shorter clothes. But Pretty Cure never does anything like this. Point 1 to Sailor Moon. However, doing this put too much stress on the Silver Crystal, causing it to shatter and Usagi to die. As the Senshi and Mamoru grieve over her death, Fiore reappears and gives Mamoru his Flower of Life as an apology for what he did. He tells him to give it to Sailor Moon to revive her, and then he flies away or something. I think this is supposed to be him dying, but he doesn't look dead to me. If anything, it just looks like he restored his youth. Mamoru gives the flower to her, the Silver Crystal reforms, Sailor Moon comes back to life, and the credits roll. The plot of the movie is pretty good, but nothing too spectacular. In terms of pure story, the series is definitely better. On top of contradicting the series on a few occasions, the plot as a whole is very simple, and the sequence of events get pretty repetitive. You want to know this entire movie sequence of events simplified? Fiore tries to kill Sailor Moon gets saved, Fiore starts questioning himself, the Kasadian Blossom mind controls him, he talks about his flower fetish and how gay he is for Mamoru. Lather, rinse, repeat. However, if you were to unsimplify it, the events that take place are pretty dang amazing. I mean, the scene where Mamoru gets kidnapped, the fight against the flower monsters, the meteor scene, these are some of the best moments in the entire franchise. As a whole, the story is nothing spectacular, but it's a fun little side adventure that I enjoyed with some excellent scenes. And besides, as is Sailor Moon tradition, the characters are what really drive the movie. The movie is mainly focused on Mamoru and Usagi. We get more insight into Mamoru's past and character, as well as Usagi's relationship with everyone, what makes her a great leader for the Sailor Senshi despite her flaws. And I feel like he handles both of these themes very well, minus the end when Usagi pulls that backstory out of nowhere. Fiore's a decent villain, probably the best out of the movies, although I would say the villains in this series are better and more fleshed out. Other than that, its character interactions are basically the same as your typical Sailor Moon R episode, which, as you know, I love. Sailor Moon R had amazing characters and interactions, and this is no exception. The animation looks amazing, especially for the new release. As a whole, I love the art style it went with, as well as the use of colors in the movie, and everything is animated really well, minus that CG meteor bit. All the characters are drawn really well and are even more expressive and characterized than the series. And as alluded to a bit earlier, the big screen really did this movie justice. It just looks so much more colorful, vivid, and smooth, even if it is technically the same movie in visuals. This movie's soundtrack is also fantastic. I already mentioned the amazing Inner Senshi transformation themes that it introduced to the series, but on top of that, it also contains other really catchy original themes, as well as some remastered versions of songs from the series. All these themes help set the mood for their respective scenes, and are also just genuinely good themes in general. And need I mention the theme of the movie, Moon Revenge? I mean, that's one of the best vocal songs in the entire franchise. It's powerful, it's catchy, and it's sung by P-Chips, a group composed of the 5 Inner Senshi's voice actors. Here's a list of my favorites from this movie that I think you should check out. Again, 2 dubs for this thing, one done by Viz, which is the new one, and the other done not by DeEK this time, but by a company called Pioneer. I mean, it still uses the same voice cast as the DeEK dub, but Pioneer is the company that brought this over to the West along with the other Sailor Moon movies. It's basically the same fare in terms of voice acting, but since it isn't produced by DeEK, it doesn't have any of the stupid editing that the DeEK version did. Yeah, they changed the lines, but the visuals aren't changed at all. No stupid transitions, no footage reversal, it's just the original movie with the English voice acting. Thank God. Another thing to note about the old dub of this movie is that for some reason they produced 2 versions of it. One that uses the DeEK dub soundtrack and one that uses the original Japanese soundtrack. I actually really like that, giving people more options. Something feels off to me about hearing the DeEK dub's voices with the original music though, so I prefer the version that used the DeEK dub soundtrack. Also, the Power of Love works fantastically for that final scene.
You've got to believe in the power of love.
I love that song. No pun intended. As for the new dub, that's what I saw in theaters, and you know, I can't believe I'm actually about to say this about something Sailor Moon related, but I think this dub is the best way to watch this movie. It isn't like the movie subbed is bad, and in many ways you could argue that there's more emotion in the voice acting, compare the final scenes for that. But I just got more out of the new dub. The jokes seem to work a lot better, and all the voice actors just did a really good job. I mean, I always thought the Viz dub was okay, though the show sub is definitely the best way to watch it, but this was really, really good. Heck, this dub officially has some of my favorite lines in the entire series. Props to you, Viz. Only downside is that if you haven't watched anything else from Viz's dub, then it may be difficult to get used to the voices. I won't be surprised if a lot of people disagree with me, but I genuinely think that the Viz dub is the best way to watch this movie. It's definitely how I'll be watching it from now on. Now, before I finish up this review, let's talk about the theater event that Viz made for this movie. To put it simply, this event was such a blast. I mean, I was genuinely surprised at how many people were there, considering the area I live in isn't really somewhere you'd expect to have many Sailor Moon fans. But the theater was packed, especially considering it was a Thursday night. We all totally sang the theme song together when it started playing. There were even cosplayers there. In fact, there was someone who used to go to my school in a really good Mercury costume. I would have never thought that she liked Sailor Moon before this. Thinking back on it now, I really wish I'd taken some pictures or videos of the event, though I was more worried about being late thanks to a certain someone, thanks Ryan, and almost losing my Venus Star wand whenever I went to get candy and drinks. The only real evidence I have of the event are these really cool character cards that were handed out at the entrance. I got Jupiter. Actually, funny story about these, I had about 5 or 6 people with me, and every single one of us got Jupiter. Every one, can you believe that? Actually, I think one of them got Mars, but even so. My theory is that my theater didn't shuffle the cards well, if at all. That or we just have really weird odds. Either way, I think it's really cool that they passed these out, although I'm a bit salty about not getting Venus. I only have two main problems with the event. First off, the movie was supposed to start at 8, but with the trailers, an interview with some of the voice actors, and the short all added on, it ended up not starting till 8:50, a whole 50 minutes later. Now, I don't have a problem with them being there, I'm actually glad the short was there, and I don't mind the interview too much, although I personally think they should have saved it as an extra for the DVD release. After all, the movie is pretty short, so I guess they needed something to lengthen it out. But maybe they should have put the interview at some other time. Like, after the movie? After all, most people talk about their favorite parts of a movie after they watch it, not before. I just feel like it would have worked better that way, having a pre-show through the recap short and having a post-show through the interview. Don't you guys think that would have worked better than having two pre-shows? And then they wouldn't need to worry about spoiling too much, which I think they did a bit. My second problem, and this may have just been the theater I was in or my proximity to the speakers, but I swear the volume was cranked up way too high. Even just simple speaking was making my ears ring in pain. Eventually I got used to it, but it was really distracting in the beginning, almost unbearable. Again though, it wasn't a deal breaker, and it could have just been a personal issue to various circumstances. I would say my favorite part of the event was definitely the audience. It was just a very energetic and fun experience. I remember when I thought I could get this out when the movie was still in theaters. Good times, good times. I mean, by now the movies are on Blu-ray, so I was way off. Oh god. I can't wait till I have high school so I can make these things faster. Well, to finish off this review talking about the actual movie itself, guys, if you can't tell, I absolutely love this movie. From the action, to the characters, to the action, to the action! I mean, just look at this! These are some of the highest quality action scenes that Sailor Moon has in its entirety. I mean, the series itself can be pretty awesome at points, but this movie is on a whole new level. The comedy and writing is top-notch, nearly the entire theater was laughing the whole time. The movie has some problems, and don't watch it expecting some Miyazaki-level masterpiece, but the movie is still just a blast to watch, and I would without a doubt say that it's the best of the Sailor Moon movies, or at least my favorite. I would highly recommend this movie, really to anyone. The movie explains enough about the series to be newcomer-friendly, while also not being too intrusive to people who are already fans. Now, just because I think this is the best of the movies, doesn't mean I think the other movies are bad. Oh, the contraire. It just means I think this movie is better than the other two. I really hope the S and Super S movies get the same treatment that this one did, though I'm sure they will with time. Anyways, I digress. Next time we're going to be picking up where we left off in the last review, as a look at the third season of the Sailor Moon anime, Sailor Moon S. Does it continue with and improve on the quality of Sailor Moon R? Well, we'll find out next time. Everybody, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you all then.
聞いてあの口づけは赤いタトゥー定めの予告刻むタトゥー私になら一目でわかる唇中に痛むタトゥー隠せないわあなたスムーリベンジ
Fiore spent this movie trying to reunite his past love of Mamoru, but his quest was fundamentally flawed in one area. He sacrificed himself in the end to bring Usagi back to life, but he could have easily lived on if he just followed these simple instructions. Don't be gay! And that's it! So remember kids, if you think you have feelings for another of the same gender, then don't! The moral of today's story is that homosexuality makes you weak-minded and evil, and the only way to become good again is by forcibly grabbing a naked teenage girl's boobs. Sailor Tanner says...